Here we are back in the greenhouse, and the tomatoes seem to be a lot happier since it's beginning to be a little bit cooler now. I put the black shade cloth right across the greenhouse and also right at the back. I put a piece of white cloth to try and block out some of the extreme sunlight that was coming in. And look at how beautiful these are, setting new fruit. This is a Paul Robeson. What's so interesting, I think, is that this plant tells a story of the summer that we've had. Able to set fruit, and then the hot weather came and burned the blossoms, and then able to set fruit again, and then the hot weather prevented the blossoms, and now it's cooler again, and the blossoms are all setting at the top. And the Cherokee purple is the same, blossoms at the top, and all the way down the stem, nothing, nothing, nothing. I have picked some fruit from this fantastic tasting tomato, but nowhere near as much as I would normally expect, even though it is an heirloom. If we have a look, you can just see inside these blossoms. Do we have anything likely to come? Maybe. There's a tiny one there. This is actually forked. And I decided to run a line up both sides, see if I can get double the harvest in the small amount of time that we've got left. Both of the tips, here and over here, both got blossoms on them. It's the middle of August. It's simply a race against time now. This is the part of the greenhouse where I had the cherry tomatoes growing. And I took those plants out and I've replaced them with two of the tomato varieties. These plants look really healthy. I'm delighted with them. And look, they're setting lots and lots of trusses. I've heard that these tomatoes are very prolific, so I'm looking forward to see what they taste like. I'll be honest with you, I haven't tasted these ones before, but they are an heirloom. And that means that I will be able to save the seeds, and I love to save seeds. I'm really impressed with this little trio. All of these are a variety called Tiny Tim. These are micro dwarfs. They're supposed to stay very, very small. Look at all the trusses on them. I'm really pleased with this. It'll be interesting to see what they taste like. This is another variety that I haven't had the opportunity to grow before. Even though the weather's been really quite a challenge for many of the plants that I've got growing inside the greenhouse and outside in the garden, there are certain plants that have been living the dream. This is a sugar rush peach. It's actually more than one plant all in one pot. I didn't have much time, so I just popped them all in together. And right next door to them, oh my goodness, the pride and joy of the greenhouse. These are habanada chilies. Look at the number of blossoms on them. I'm thrilled with these. Behind the white shade cloth that I put up were some of my seeds, and I'll be honest with you, I completely forgot about them. They managed to stay alive and they've all sprouted, but oh my goodness, they're leggy. I'm not quite sure whether or not I should plant those or not. This jungle of vines growing up these blue wires are all sorts of different melons. I'll be honest, I think it's been both too hot and too cold for the melons. It's a Goldilocks season where we're just trying to make sure it's just right. And I'm not sure what we're going to get. They're already showing signs of stress. Because there haven't been many pollinators around, despite me putting flowers into the greenhouse, I've been pollinating by hand. I always put a little note to myself with this red and white cord to let me know when I've hand pollinated anything. My one pride and joy though is this. I'll be careful not to move the net. This is my first ever Kajari melon. Isn't that beautiful? If I can just tweak it a bit, you can see the colours. So beautiful. I'm waiting for the tendrils and the leaves at the side to change colour so that I know that it's almost ready to pick. But just in case I'm not here, I've put this bag around the actual fruit and it's suspended off this hook so that if that fruit drops, everything will be all right and it won't smash on the greenhouse floor. Although that's definitely a Kajari melon, I actually mixed up the naming on it. Can you see? I thought it was a Tigger. I'll have to go and check to see whether or not I've put the wrong name on the seed packet. It can happen. These are more Kajari melons coming. I hand-pollinated these as well. I also started off a row of Amsterdam forcing carrots. I'll thin these down in a little while. These will be grown in the greenhouse throughout the whole of their life cycle, and they should give us some carrots very soon. Tucked into a shady area of the greenhouse and covered very carefully against the insects, I also have some Green Magic broccoli starts and some Trafalgar sprouts to go out. I know I'm really late, but there was no point in putting these out if they were going to get torched by the sun. Here we are in the long beds. My chives are starting to go to flower. I'll pick those and add them to salads. The calendula seeds are almost ready to harvest. I've already got some of these drying in the greenhouse, but you can never have too many of this fantastic plant. Here are the strawberries, my lovely, lovely seascape. Look down here. They're still producing. They produce all year round. I've been so pleased with these. I'll show you some of the cuttings I've taken. Well, actually, it's runners like these. These are the runners. I've been collecting these on the occasion that the plants have been sending them out. I'll show you where I've been putting the runners later when we get to the allotment bed. Now here, behind this net, are Oregon sugar pod mange 2 peas. I'd love to show you what's going on behind this net, actually. Explain why I put the net up in the first place. I just move this forward a little bit. You can see a sign of bird damage right at the bottom. Little peck marks. That was a wren. She absolutely feasted on these when I first put them out. So I covered it over with this netting and it did the job. You can see the difference in the leaves that haven't been pecked and the ones that have been picked. Originally, this was part of the garden where all the mange 2 were completely torched. And though I had a very small harvest, what I decided to do is to collect some of the seeds. And if you watched that particular vlog, you'll recall that I saved the seeds in order to be able to see whether or not there were any of the hot seeds that would sprout. And here they are. These are new plants growing from the hot seeds, as I call it, the seeds that were torched by the sun in the first heat wave. If everything goes according to plan, I might get some of a harvest this year, but let's wait and see. This year's been completely upside down for growing. I'll just cover this up so that if the wren pays me another visit, it can't completely take out all of my beautiful mange 2 peas again. I don't really know what to make of this part of the garden, really. I'm quite disappointed in this bed. I think this is the result of the very, very hot weather we've had. Look at how little fruit has been set. The ground cherry's grown well, but there isn't a single flower on it yet. Let's wait and see. This little bee looks absolutely exhausted, sleeping on a leaf in the crimson crush. We're in the opposite long bed now. This is the spinach. It's showing a little bit of damage from the sun, but I'm sure that the leaves that are coming through will be absolutely fine. I'll go through later and pick some of these. Same setup again as on the opposite side, but this time these are Robinson peas. I'm growing these not for a harvest of the actual peas. I'm growing these to increase the number of seeds that I have. So the Robinson peas will usually grow an awful lot taller than this particular mesh would allow them to grow, but I'm going to ignore that entirely. Maybe allow them to grow up about a metre high, and then I'll trim all the tops off them so that they produce their fruit faster. And then perhaps I'll be able to dry some of those peas, which I'd really like for next spring. As this space wasn't really being used, I decided to hang some wires from one of the hooks, and I'm growing these watermelon on it. The actual watermelon themselves are actually rooted over there on the other bed, but I've decided to train them along to see what would happen. And look, I'm absolutely thrilled. If we look in amongst the leaves down here, I have a watermelon growing. It's so tiny. There are lots of people who really enjoy looking at pictures of kittens and puppies. For me, it's baby versions of the fruit that I like. Eventually, as long as I can get this all the way to its full maturity and harvest, we'll be eating the red flesh as part of our dessert. I'll save the seeds, so I've got seeds for next year because this is a sugar baby and I believe that's an heirloom variety. And then the inside of the rind I'm going to be turning into pickle. So it's got a lot of responsibility, this little watermelon. In the sister bed to the watermelon, I have the original bed that I was reserving for butternut squash. The lavender here has gone completely mad this summer. That's supposed to be a really small variety, and yet it's taken up nearly a third of the bed. So I'll be cutting that back. I might actually take this out. Maybe I'll just take some cuttings from it and start again. The bees have been really enjoying it, but I think it's taking too much nourishment out of the bed. So what have we got growing in this bed? Well, these are mini butternut squashes. The plants aren't mini, but the actual fruit it will produce are supposed to be very small. Come round to a different part of the garden to explain what it is that I'm doing here. You can see on the other side, that's where the Robinson peas are. And on the other side of that is the watermelon growing up the line. This panel I've dedicated to these butternut squash. There's 2 plants in here, and I'm running an experiment. One plant, I'm allowing that to grow all the way up, and I've been training it so that it grows like that, up the actual metal structure, because that will be the equivalent of about 8 meters. And the other one I've kept really small, so that's grown up, but I've only let it grow to 2 levels, and then I've cut the end of it out. And I'm just really trying to see which one of them prefers the different method. I think the jury was out up until about a week ago when I realised that the longer of the 2 vines was producing all the female flowers, which I then made sure I pollinated. There's one there, and there's one there. And I'm now training the same vine up. And it will go all the way along to the end where the wooden stop is. And then I'll cut the vine so that it spends more time maturing the fruits that it already has produced for me. Underneath all of these shades and coverings is the allotment bed. Behind this particular set of netting are the seascape starts that I was talking about earlier. Not all of them have made it, but there's enough here, and I can continue to put the runners into this part of the bed. I think it will begin to be a lot easier for them now that we have a few weeks where I'm hoping the weather won't get as high as 37 degrees. Next to the strawberries, put in a divider because I'm trying to build up the ground gradually. And so the height of the strawberry bed is actually higher than the leek bed. In the leek bed, I've got 2 different kinds of leeks, the Jolant and Musselburgh. And because they're grown so tight and they've become such a tangle, I was a bit worried that I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But actually, I can. If you look at the colour of the leaves, this is much, much darker than that one. There's quite a contrast. So I think the musselburgh is probably the darker of the two, so the mystery is solved. I'm going to pull back this shade cloth, but I'm not going to remove it straight away because I don't trust the summer not to come and beat down the heat on it. Down here, I have the celery, the last of the celery this year, and also tucked right behind it, I've got some beets. Let me show you. I think those are almost ready to come out, don't you? I can certainly use the leaves in salads, or perhaps I can dehydrate them for smoothies. This celery, I'll take all the tops. That will go in the freezer for when I make my bone broths. Pleased with that. Next door is a holding bag. I've put one of these planks between the two beds because I'm intending to build up the soil levels, but I have to do it at different times. In these pots, I've got some Armenian cucumbers. I've also got some Beth Alpha cucumbers. And over here, some Pedigree de Rennes. I didn't have anywhere to keep these and I was worried about letting them be in my kitchen, but the greenhouse was too hot. So I thought as I had this spare space, it would be a good place to tuck them just for a little while. Here's another of those dividers. The soil on this side is much lower than the soil on this side because I've already amended this bed. It looks like I'm growing planks of wood, but actually underneath the wood I've planted carrots. These are Eskimo. You put the wood over the top of the seeds to keep the soil nice and damp, and it was certainly necessary over the last heat wave. So I've got Eskimo. In the centre, I've got more Amsterdam forcing, and here, on that side, there's a mixture of Nirak and then some more Eskimo carrots. Nothing yet. I've removed all of the stalks and the leaves now from the plums. I'm going to weigh them and then I'll soak them in some water. Even though they're grown absolutely naturally, not even with any organic sprays put on them, I still like to clean off all the dust. I thought I'd show you, I've actually got two different plum trees that I'm growing. These are the Opal, and the other variety I've got are the Victorias. That's the two, Opal Victorias. Let's see how much harvest we got summer 2026. So that's just over 2 kilos. I'm absolutely thrilled with that. I'll get those washed up and then decide whatever it is I'm going to do with them. I might try some plum ketchup this year, or may juice them down, or perhaps I'll just split them, take the stones out and freeze them for later so that we can have those for fresh eating. Self-sufficiency just needs a place to start. Begin where you are and grow from there. I'll see you next time.